Welcome back to AI Crypto Pulse, your ultimate source for high-level digital asset intelligence and the most comprehensive market breakdowns found anywhere in the cryptosphere. Today, we are taking a deep, analytical look at a perspective that is currently shaking up the entire community, specifically focusing on a digital asset that has been at the center of debate for over a decade. The headline we are dissecting today is absolutely crucial for anyone holding or even just watching this space. The bull case for XRP that even skeptics should read. We are moving beyond the typical social media hype and the repetitive echo chambers to look at the cold, hard facts of how this ecosystem is evolving. If you have been following the XRP narrative for several years, you know that the original story was all about becoming a universal bridge currency for every international money transfer on the planet. While that specific vision has faced significant hurdles, a new, much more powerful thesis is emerging that might just turn the most hardened skeptics into believers. And you need to hear why the game has changed. To truly understand why the outlook for XRP is shifting so dramatically, we first have to acknowledge the reality of the past 5 years and how Ripple's strategy has fundamentally transformed in response to a changing global market. Back in the day, the primary pitch was that XRP would almost instantly replace the aging SWIFT system as the primary mechanism for cross-border liquidity. While that story hasn't played out exactly as the early visionaries envisioned, the actual data shows a staggering level of growth that many people are simply overlooking. Ripple has successfully processed over $95 billion in cumulative transfer volume, which is a massive milestone by any objective standard. However, the interesting twist is that a large portion of this flow currently utilizes stablecoins or more traditional money transfer technologies rather than the native XRP token. But here's the catch. There is a massive bull case for XRP that doesn't actually depend on that old investment thesis at all, and it is rooted in the sheer industrial power that Ripple is building behind the scenes. One of the biggest misconceptions in the market today is treating Ripple like it is still some tiny, struggling tech startup working out of a garage. In reality, over the last 24 months, Ripple has completed a series of massive strategic acquisitions worth more than $4 billion in total aggregate value. This marks a definitive and aggressive pivot from being just a payments-focused company into becoming a diversified global financial infrastructure giant. They aren't just trying to move money anymore. They are buying the very pipes and systems that the world's largest financial institutions use to manage their wealth. This expansion is designed to create a comprehensive ecosystem where digital assets can thrive, and it provides a level of stability and institutional support that almost no other project in the entire cryptocurrency space can claim. When a company has this much capital and is making these kinds of high-level moves, you have to stop looking at them as a crypto project and start looking at them as a major player in the global fintech industry. Among these massive strategic moves, the two most important purchases that everyone needs to be aware of are the acquisitions of Road and GTreasury. For those who aren't familiar with the institutional side of finance, Road is a powerhouse prime brokerage, and GTreasury is a massive enterprise treasury management system used by some of the biggest corporations in the world. By bringing these entities under their umbrella, Ripple is essentially embedding itself into the very fabric of how institutional money moves and is managed daily. Furthermore, in November of 2025, Ripple raised an additional $500 million from a group of elite investors, including high-profile financial service providers like Fortress Investment Group and Citadel Securities. When companies of that caliber put hundreds of millions of dollars behind a project, it sends a loud and clear signal to the market that Ripple has achieved a level of institutional credibility and serious capital backing that is almost unheard of in the world of digital assets. This massive influx of capital and institutional partnership has effectively turned the XRP Ledger into a high-end sandbox for some of the most significant financial experiments in history. We are no longer talking about what-if scenarios. We are seeing real-world execution by the biggest names in banking. For example, back on May 6th, a powerhouse group including JP Chase, MasterCard, and Ripple itself completed the first ever cross-border, cross-bank redemption of a tokenized United States Treasury bond right on the XRP Ledger. Think about the magnitude of that for a second. Some of the most conservative and powerful financial institutions on Earth are actively choosing to build and test on Ripple's infrastructure. This isn't just a pilot program. It is a fundamental proof of concept that proves major players are willing to trust this technology for the most secure and vital financial instruments in existence. This level of institutional adoption is a massive bullish factor that most people are completely underestimating. Beyond just the technology and the partnerships, we have to look at the simple economic reality that Ripple has a massive amount of skin in the game when it comes to the success of XRP. Ripple currently holds roughly 34 billion XRP in escrow, which represents about 1/3 of the token's total 100 billion unit supply. At current market prices, that escrowed XRP alone is worth tens of billions of dollars, making it the single largest asset on Ripple's balance sheet. Therefore, it is in Ripple's absolute best financial interest to do everything humanly possible to invest in the ecosystem surrounding XRP and ensure it becomes a highly valuable investment. Every single technological upgrade they fund, every new partnership they sign, and every regulatory license they fight for exists, at least in part, to create the perfect conditions for XRP to accrue massive value over the long term. They aren't just developers, they are the largest stakeholders in the success of the asset. The core of the new bull case is the realization that Ripple is more likely than not to use every bit of its multi-billion-dollar war chest to increase the utility and ultimately the price of the coin. They are building a world where XRP isn't just an option, but a necessity for the infrastructure they are deploying across the globe. Of course, in any market, there is always the risk of failure. Ripple could fail to sufficiently cater XRP to its target institutional users, or they might struggle to convince traditional investors that their efforts will lead to the massive returns everyone is hoping for. However, when you compare XRP to almost any other crypto asset on the market, the difference is night and day. XRP is backed by a well-funded, strategically expanding, and institutionally recognized company that is fighting on the front lines of global finance. Most other tokens are backed by anonymous developers or small foundations with very little capital, giving XRP a distinct and massive competitive advantage in the long run. Now, while we are focused on the massive potential of XRP, it is also important to take a step back and look at the broader investment landscape to keep our perspective grounded. Experienced analysts often remind us that even when a project looks like a sure thing, diversifying your approach is the hallmark of a smart investor. Even the most legendary investment teams, like the one at the Motley Fool, sometimes identify opportunities that they believe have even higher growth potential than the top crypto assets. Their stock advisor team has a history of spotting massive winners like Netflix and Nvidia years before they became the household names they are today. For instance, if you had invested just $1,000 in Netflix when they first recommended it in 2004, you would be looking at nearly $500,000 today. Or consider Nvidia. A $1,000 investment back in 2005 would have grown into over $1.3 million by now. That kind of track record is why people pay such close attention to these top 10 lists. It is this kind of historical performance that highlights why it is so important to stay informed about all sectors of the market, not just crypto. While we are all here because we believe in the revolutionary power of digital assets like XRP, we shouldn't ignore the massive growth happening in the traditional tech and AI sectors as well. The stock advisor teams often beat the S&P 500 by massive margins because they look for companies with long-term growth runways and, quote, monster return potential. Joining an investing community built for the long haul can give you a distinct advantage, whether you are looking at the next big move in the XRP ledger or the next giant in the semiconductor industry. Staying balanced and keeping your eyes on the latest top 10 lists ensures that you aren't missing out on the life-changing wealth that can be created when you identify the right assets at the right time, just like many did with early-stage tech stocks. Returning our focus to the XRP ledger, we have to talk about why its architecture is becoming so attractive for the tokenization of real-world assets, or RWA. This is the next frontier of finance, where everything from real estate and gold to government bonds is moved onto a blockchain for instant settlement and fractional ownership. The XRP Ledger was built specifically for this type of high-stakes utility, offering low transaction costs and incredible speed that makes it superior to many of the more congested networks. As we saw with the tokenized Treasury bond redemption, the infrastructure is already being used for the highest level of assets. As the world moves toward the Internet of Value, where value moves as easily as information does today, the XRP Ledger is positioned to be one of the primary highways for this massive migration of global wealth. This isn't just about moving XRP, it's about the ledger becoming the foundation for the entire future of digital finance. Another major factor that skeptics often overlook is the sheer regulatory clarity that XRP has fought for and achieved in the United States. While many other major projects are still hiding from regulators or stuck in legal limbo, Ripple has gone through the fire and come out on the other side with a degree of legal standing that is unique in the crypto world. This regulatory moat is incredibly valuable because it allows institutional players to engage with the ecosystem without the constant fear of a sudden government crackdown. For a big bank or a massive corporation, certainty is often more important than the technology itself. By providing a clear framework and working within the legal system, Ripple has made XRP one of the safest bets for institutions that want exposure to blockchain technology but have strict compliance requirements to follow. This clarity is a magnet for big money that is still sitting on the sidelines of the broader crypto market. We also have to consider the massive global footprint Ripple is establishing through its various international licenses and regional headquarters. They are not just a US company, they are a global operation with a presence in every major financial hub, from London and Singapore to Dubai and Tokyo. This global reach allows them to work directly with central banks and regional financial regulators to tailor their solutions to the specific needs of different markets. In many parts of the world, especially in emerging economies, the need for efficient cross-border settlement is even more desperate than it is in the West. By solving real-world problems in these regions, Ripple is creating a massive, decentralized network of users that will ultimately drive the long-term utility of the XRP token. The more the world becomes interconnected, the more valuable a fast, neutral, and reliable bridge asset becomes. And XRP is sitting right in the center of that trend. Furthermore, the developer community around the XRP ledger is growing at an unprecedented rate, bringing new innovations like the EVM sidechain and native smart contracts to the ecosystem. For a long time, the criticism was that the XRP ledger was too simple compared to platforms like Ethereum. However, with the introduction of these new features, the ledger is becoming a fully functional platform for decentralized finance, NFTs, and complex automated protocols. This means that XRP isn't just a payment coin anymore, it is becoming a utility token for a vast and growing decentralized economy. When you combine the institutional power of Ripple with the creative energy of a decentralized developer community, you get a best of both worlds scenario that few other projects can match. This dual-track growth, institutional and decentralized, is one of the most compelling parts of the modern bull case that every investor should be watching closely. As we look toward the future, the integration of AI and machine learning into the XRP Ledger's ecosystem is another area of massive potential growth. Imagine a world where automated trading bots, treasury management systems, and cross-border settlement protocols are all powered by AI and settled instantly on a high-speed ledger. Ripple's recent acquisitions and partnerships suggest they are thinking far ahead into this future, positioning themselves to be the financial layer for the AI-driven economy. In this scenario, the demand for a fast, low-cost, and reliable settlement asset would skyrocket, as machines move value at a frequency and scale that humans simply can't imagine. XRP's technical specifications make it one of the few assets capable of handling that kind of high-velocity, high-volume traffic, making it a potential cornerstone of the next industrial revolution. This is the kind of long-term vision that separates the visionary investors from the short-term speculators. In conclusion, the story of XRP has evolved far beyond the simple bridge currency narrative of 2018. It is now a story of institutional credibility, massive capital deployment, and the building of a new global financial infrastructure that the world's largest banks are already starting to use. Whether you are a long-time holder or a skeptic who is just now taking a second look, the facts on the ground are impossible to ignore. Ripple has the resources, the partnerships, and the strategic vision to make XRP a central player in the future of money. Thank you so much for joining us here at AI Crypto Pulse for this deep dive. Your support and engagement are what keep us bringing you the most important news in the world of digital assets. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, And turn on that notification bell so you never miss an update on this rapidly changing market. We want to hear from you in the comments. Do you think the institutional pivot is enough to send XRP to new all-time highs? Stay informed, stay focused, and we will see you in the next one.